This is the Oral Testimonies project at the Jewish Holocaust Museum, Melbourne. I am Jerry Kress interviewing Mrs. Anna Danko on the 15th of November 1995. If I feel that you're jumping ahead, often people...
Thank you.
Mrs. Danko, could you begin by telling us, please, where and when you were born?
Yeah, Berehovo, that time it was Czechoslovakia, 1924, 29th of June.
Could you please tell us the members of your family? Parents, brothers and sisters?
Well, I had 3 brothers, 3 sisters. I was the youngest, the 7th child.
Could you tell us their names?
My sister is Tubi, Erzsébet. She died last year in Sydney. And one of them is still living in Hungary, in Budapest. And 2 brothers died in Voronezh, Russia. And 1 brother is in America, Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. What was your maiden name?
Grunfeld or not.
Mm-hmm. And the names of your parents?
My father's name was Henry, or Chaim. My mother's name Serena.
Do you know your mother's maiden name?
Yes, Weinstock.
Mm-hmm. Did you have extended family, grandparents, aunties,
Yes,
uncles?
I did. They all died after the ghetto in Auschwitz. My parents died there too.
Mm-hmm. Did you live close to your grandparents?
Yeah, not far. From my father's side, the grandparents, we used to live in the same city, in the same street. And from my mother's side, they were living in Hungary.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't very far by bus.
How long by bus?
Let's see, by car around 3/4 of an hour or so.
Mm-hmm. And did you get to see them often?
Yes, or they came, or the holidays, they had a big farm, and the holidays we used to go there with my mother to my grandparents. We stayed there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So can you remember your childhood, what it was like growing up as the youngest of 7 children?
Everybody was beating me. I used to play football with my younger brother, who is still alive, as I told you, in Cleveland, Ohio. I think he was born the age difference wasn't so big.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to play skiing, skating, football, volleyball. We had a very big garden, and my friends and my brother's friend used to come to us, but my 2 eldest brothers, they were already soldiers, as far as I remember, or out of the house. Or younger time, they went to the yeshiva,
Mm-hmm.
to Hust. It was Rabbi Dushinsky. That was a very, very big name in Europe, and only thing I remember vaguely of the 2 eldest brothers.
Mm-hmm. What did your father do for a living?
My father had you see, in Europe we used to heat in the winter with wood.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a big factory, we sold wood for... I used to go with my father by car up to the towns, where do they grow the wood, the big
forest.
Forest, yes. When he bought the
wood
home, yes, then we had a very big place where the wood used to stay somewhere in the city, outside the city, and and with wine. He was handling with wine as well. We had grapes,
Mm-hmm.
grape, how you call it, where the grapes?
A vineyard.
Vineyard, yes. And that was real fun.
Was the vineyard in your garden?
No, it was a bit further from the town. It was quite a big one, and then we made wine.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a big cellar to keep the wine. And it was such a big, I don't know how big, that until the wine was ripening, you know what I mean? And they made some all kind of wine, and that was good life.
And was your mother involved in the business?
No, we had 7 children, and she was busy with the house, and we had always help in the house. Jewish girls came from the poorest part of Czechoslovakia, because the people were very poor there. And they used to stay as long as they got married, and they called their sister to stay at our place, One of them came with us to Auschwitz, and we stayed in the same place. You understand Yiddish? And when we were sitting in the block, I started to cry. I want to have soda water. Just suddenly, we didn't have. And then she said, Fräulein, in Zemmen nicht in der Heim, you can't have not soda water, but not even wine, And then I don't know what happened to her, but she was very good to us. Two of my other sister and me were together, and the eldest sister, who lives in Sydney, she was already married, and she used to live in Hungary, so she went to a different part of the camp. She was in Auschwitz. I think one day I met her only after the war. How she found out, and you can ask her, after the war she used to ask, do you know the Grunfeld girls from Berexas? And one of the girls, because where I used to live, people didn't speak well in Hungarian or Czech, they speak Yiddish. But at home we speak or Hungarian or Czech. And my sister used to ask my elder sister, did you ever see the 3 Grunfeld girls? And one of the girls told her that lucky is the mother who had a daughter like Anzi, that's me. And then she knew that I'm alive. Wherever I could, I had a little piece, I shared it with the people who were lying in typhus or typhus, you say it. I got a lot of friends in Israel. First, Ronnie, my son, went to Israel before he married 15 years ago or so, and I was very upset. And I said, Ronnie, you will be in trouble. Stay in Tel Aviv for a few hours or for a few days, and you say that you are Anzi's son. People will look at you, and that happened. That happened. And that shows, whenever you do something good, it always comes. They took him in, they looked after him just like they would their own son. You can ask Ronnie. I said to him in English, son, if you are in need, you haven't got what to do, just stay in Tel Aviv in Dizengoff, and you say that you are Anzi's son. That happened, darling.
Where did you go to school?
Berexas.
Was it a Jewish school?
No. We had Jewish school for the low grade, but we were Orthodox, but as I told you, my brothers used to learn at
Yeshiva.
Dushinsky. You heard from the Rabbi Dushinsky? No. And then in Pressburg, Bratislava, but we were on the middle, we were not Hasidic Jews. And then we went to the Czech school, and when the Czech had to go out, and we went to Hungarian school. I intend to go in Munkac, next to our city. There was a Hebrew school. I wanted to go to finish my matric, and then it came numerus clausus, and then it came numerus nullus, so we had to stop, and I found myself in the ghetto.
So, did you play a lot with your friends from school, outside of school?
Yes, but I never did. I wasn't told at home. I was very friendly when we were at high school. The one of who was how you call it in English, who the director from the school. They had a daughter. Martha was her name. Not Jewish people, but we were not taught if somebody is not Jewish you can't be friendly. In the contrary, they just came to us. And when the Hungarian people came in, the army came in, she turned her eyes, her head away. She didn't want to recognize me. So, and then I realized that something is going wrong, that everybody was welcome at our place. The pious or no pious didn't matter, the religious. The family background was the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what about your parents' friends? Were they
Orthodox.
Just Jewish or mixture of friends?
My father dealt with a lot of business people, but we used to live next to the synagogue in Simchas Torah. The whole synagogue came over for a Kiddush, That's true. They bought a Sefer Torah. There was davening there. Mom used to cook and bake, and the whole shul was at our place. So we didn't distinguish this is a Jew. My brother used to have Christian friend.
Mm-hmm. From school?
From school. Matter of fact, the second house from us where we used to live, in a very nice house, used to live some non-Jewish people. They wanted to save us, not to go into the ghetto. My mother told me, all right, go, and I couldn't. I didn't want to part from my mother. I thought, wherever you go, I go with you.
They offered to keep you in their house?
In their house, where, you see, he was a leftist, that he was a tailor, that called, but very nice, not lower class people, and we didn't. Matter of fact, after I came home from Auschwitz, I wrote to them. They still live in, now it is Ukraine, it belongs to the Polish people, but the place used to send them parcel, and then we just stopped.
Mm-hmm. What's their name?
Turozi. They were the mother and the father, and my sister's name, who is now in Hungary, who lives in Hungary, the daughter and my sister were the best friend.
Uh-huh. Mm.
See, we were not told that, look, you have to be friendly only with Jewish people. No, we had freedom to choose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Only with nice people we had to. As I told you that from the ghetto I was able, because I was working, like in Hebrew they say Bikur Cholim, I used to go to the hospitals, and I could go walk in and out from the ghetto, and there was the city doctor, how you call it in English, it was Chonadi was his name, Dr. Chonadi, not a Jew, and he came to the ghetto, and he told me, he asked me to go up to his place. He had 2 children, beautiful blonde children, and he said that, look, they're putting me in another place. You don't go back to the ghetto. You come with us as a maid, and you will. And I went home, I went to the ghetto, and I said to my mother, Dr. Chanadi offered this and this. I was naive, and the one spoiled as well. When I this last, the 7th child, everybody was hitting me, beating me, and my mother said, go, my child, go. And I was thinking, and then I said, no, Mom, wherever you go, I go with you. Mm-hmm. And what happened after the war? That family was a wonderful family. After the war, where I used to live in Hungary, in Nyíregyháza. As I told you, my mother's family used to be there, and my elder sister's husband used to be a doctor, an ear, nose and throat specialist, and after the war he was in a very high position. He was in Auschwitz too. We were talking, and he tells me that there is a doctor, this can't practice here, but he used to be in Berexas, the city doctors, you know, every city had a... And I said, what's his name? He said, Dr. Chanadi. I said to my brother-in-law, listen, Alex, what? Because my brother-in-law used to be then the Jewish doctors in the Jewish hospital, the director. I said, whatever you can do for that man, he wanted to save him. You do it, because they took away his doctor's license. He couldn't practice. And he got back, I can prove it to you, that he became a doctor again, and he went up to Budapest and practicing. Mm-hmm. You know what life can produce. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, because perhaps he wasn't a communist, and after the war, you know, they say, but he was a wonderful gentleman. Or it happened once, Tarnovari was his name, from the police station. I don't know if you are interested, and as I told you, I used to work at the joint, used to call Omja, as a young child. And then that time they started to send the Polish-born Jews from Hungary to the Polish border again, you know, out from Hungary, because they are not, they don't belong to Hungary, you know. Kamiński Podolsk, that was where they took those Polish-born Jews, and they just rode them from the border over to Poland. And we used to have a phone call that, I don't know, from Budapest. It always happened Friday night. I don't know how many family goes there now to the border and take them, you know, organize some food and things like that. Or it used to be razzia. What is it, razzia? You know, to go and collect those people used to come back from Kamiński-Podolsk.
Roundup. Razzia, roundup.
Yeah. And I always had in the police station, Tarnovaris was his name, and he always let me know that there's going to be going to look for those, if you are hiding someone or not. Of course, at our ceiling, there were always some people hiding, you know. So they came back from, is it clear what I'm saying to you? And we had a big garden. It was Shabbos morning, and they came up and they caught me that I'm trying to take those two couples, an elderly mother and two sons, back to the garden, and they took me up to the police station, and they wanted to deport, you know, to send me out to Poland as well, and we tried to do everything. And that gentleman, that Tarnovari, as I mentioned, that policeman, he couldn't do anything. My father tried to. He came from shul, and I was sitting in the jail with I don't know how many people, and my mother comes up and crying. And he used to put always my file underneath, you know, when they came to take me, that I should be the last. He couldn't do anything better. So anyway, they, I don't know what happened. They let me go. Then we went to the ghetto. So I got free. And as I told you, after the war, I was working again in the Jewish Volksküche, you know, where people came home. They didn't have, but I didn't get any money. I didn't get paid for that. Just I do it for how you call it?
As a volunteer.
Volunteer, yes, and a lot of cousins and my sisters, we used to live in one home, and I just heard that man, he left the place where we were, because that belonged to the Ukraine, you know, to Hungary, and he hasn't got what to eat with his wife, he's there. And I got his address. Every day he came with a little something to cook home dinner for his wife, and at the police station he got a job because he was wonderful. You see, he didn't want to stay there because it was occupied by the, not just the Polish, the Ukrainian people. They were very, very wild. So he came to Hungary, and he thought that he might, and he was very grateful when I left Hungary. He was really crying with his wife. So what life can produce. You know, it is unbelievable. And then when I went to Vienna, I got a recommended letter from the Joint, you know, this Jewish organization to look after me. They wanted to give me money. And I said, I don't need money, I want to work, so I got a job. I used to take people over from Vienna to Salzburg by bus, who went to Israel, and then I came back the same day with the bus. So I said to the Russian, "Здравствуйте, товарищ," I gave them the whiskey, I went into the front and I walked out from the back, so they didn't make any trouble. Did you ever hear from Judy Kessep? There's a painter in Sydney. That's how she wanted to give me $1,000 I got proof for it. I didn't have money. And I said, no, you give me your photos, because she didn't have a passport. And she couldn't go back to the place where we were born, and I took her to Salzburg, because since between Vienna and Salzburg there were some Russian. Vienna was American and Russian. In Salzburg you were free again. And when the people went to Israel, we took them to Salzburg by bus. It was arranged by the office.
I'm going to take you back a few years now, back to your childhood. Did you or your family belong to any organisations, community organisations or religious organisations?
I don't think so, only the boys and the children. I belong to the Hanwar Hatzioni Klal. My brother who lives in Cleveland, he belonged to the Mizrahi, I believe, or I don't know what was the name for, something like Aguda, not completely so deep.
And you say that the shul, the synagogue, was near your house?
The second home.
Right next door?
Yeah.
So it seems like it played a very big part in your life, going to shul, and the shul congregation coming into your home.
Oh, yes. We couldn't play table tennis because, you know, from the front they could see Shabbos. We couldn't play football or the back garden because it was Shabbos, you know what I mean. So, but I think the shul is not there anymore, I was told. I couldn't go back to the place where I was born. Once I went with my sisters, but cow and things were looking through the window, really. Beautiful home with parquetry, you know, beautiful. And I said to my sister, who is that, you know, and the cow was looking through the window.
A cow?
A cow, yes, they're so primitive, those people who are still living there, you know. Somebody was there and they said that the whole city is very neglected, it looks terrible.
Did you share a bedroom with one of your sisters?
With one of them, yes. The boys had a room. And then my elder sister got married. And, wait a minute, yeah, one of my sisters, there was a smaller room. My mother, father, and the two boys, 3 boys had a room. And then we had an extra room for the maid by the kitchen, the bathroom, entry hall. And I didn't like to cook. I was always running. I told my mom, I'm coming back soon. We were always running away from work. I used to like sport very much.
What did you play?
Whatever you want, from volleyball to football to soccer, what I mean. And skating, skiing, swimming. In the summer we used to go to the beach. It wasn't not a big one, and my mother used to bring some lunch, food.
And where did you ski?
At home there was a very high mountains, a lot of mountains, skating. See, there is not a problem in Europe because it was big snow falling. We used to go or skiing or skating to school. You know? You remember?
Yes.
We used to make such a big places, you know, it was very, you know, if you stand on you fall down. I don't know how you call it in English, you know, if you made a very, I don't know how you say it in English, long things, and throw someone there, they fell on their back. Big fun. Big fun, there was nothing. We used to sit, when we went skating, we used to sit on the frozen part of the sea, you know. It was no stocking, we just half stocking, you know. I was never sick, never nothing. Matter of fact, I went to Auschwitz with my ski shoe, and at the Brezhinka they wanted to take it off. They didn't cut my hair off. They cut my elder sister hair, and one of the girls wanted to take my shoe. It was a beautiful ski shoe, you know, and you know, I was standing there, and then my sister came, the eldest one who lives in, you leave that shoe on my sister's leg. And then somebody walks in, no hair, nothing, and my sister said, who are you? Why are you following us? The one who died was sister in Sydney 2 years ago, and she said, I'm Ashley, you know, we didn't recognize her. And how grateful, you know, I started to be very lousy, you know, I didn't have a comb. And after a few days, really, and my sister used to take them out, you know, it was shocking. And somebody gave us a comb, we had to give a small bread piece, but I couldn't. That was the only time in my life that I had a, how you call it when you make it that your hair will be curly, how you call it?
A perm.
Never in my life since then, you know. I couldn't push through the comb because, and I don't know how many portion I had to give, and my sister used to sit there on the, my sister used to take off, and how was I crying that I got some rice on that.
So where did you learn Hebrew and religious studies? Did you go to Sunday school?
Well, there was, Hebrew. I was learning Hebrew, as I told you, I wanted to go to the next city to us, to the Hebrew high school. And then I learned in the Zionist organization. My Hebrew was quite good after, before the war, you know. I mean, I knew the kitchen language, you know. They couldn't sell me, not even that. But that was in Karpatno, that was the only Hebrew school, but then it stopped. They didn't let them exist.
So how old were you when you went to that Zionist school?
As a young, well, how old was I before the war?
Primary school or high school?
It was high school. I just wanted to go, but I learned privately, you know, the Hebrew language.
At home?
At home, yes. There was a person who taught us, you know.
You had a teacher coming in?
Yeah.
And taught you together with your brothers and sisters?
Yes, yeah.
How often?
Once a week. It was quite often, believe me.
And what about religious education? Was that what you saw at home?
Only what we saw at home. You know, we didn't, we had kosher at home. And, I mean, we were not, I remember when my two brothers came home from one of the yeshiva, they cut off their pious, you know. They didn't have they usually didn't go without a hat. They always had some kind, not like here, but, you know, after the war everyone wears a yarmulke, but usually some kind of a cap or a hat. And my father hadn't seen them, they had it without.
Did your father wear a hat all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. And was your father Orthodox from home?
Oh yeah, my mother too. As they say, they come both from very Balbatish homes. My grandfather was a wine handler, a big wine handler as well. And their mother's side, on my mother's side, we had a lot of farm, very big one. The whole Hungarian aristocrat knew them. And it was in a small town in Hungary. They were very, very big. And matter of fact, they were very, very rich but very good-hearted. They had every day, we had some bucherim, you know what it is, at home. From the yeshiva they used to come for breakfast, for dinner, from Monday until right through the day. At my grandparents' place, from my mother's side, there used to be a place only for the bucherim, you know, those poor people. Here I met a few people who used to eat days at my grandparents' place. Yeah, it's a nice feeling, you know. This, you are the grandchild from Weinstock. I said, yes. Is it cold? Yeah.
So you grew up in a well-known, big, loving
Yes.
family. You had a very happy childhood by the sounds of
Say
things.
yes. As I told you, our mother used to bring out to the water where we used to lunch. In the summertime, we came home in the evening. The table was. We had always a maid, a Jewish girl, and then on the house backyard, we used to have a housemaster who used to sweep the snow and clean the house. I don't know how you say that in English.
A caretaker.
A caretaker, yes. They had a room and a half where the sick used to be at home. And that was that. It's all gone. And in the middle of Zurich, I wanted to have soda water. The second day in Auschwitz, sitting there, it was named Gizzy, I want some soda. Fräulein, you don't know where you are. It wasn't a piece of water, you know. We couldn't have, in the winter time in Auschwitz, how you call that time in the winter, the water is frozen. And I used to break it off. Ice. And when the Germans saw them, they hit me so much for that, you know. Unbelievable, really.
Was your father politically involved?
No, it wasn't. That I don't think so that time. Not like now, liberal, labor, nation. You know what I mean? I don't remember those things. Jew is a Jew, or frum or not frum. I don't remember. And I wasn't brought up, if somebody is not a Jew, you can't talk to them. In the contrary.
Did you feel there was a difference between your Jewish friends and your non-Jewish friends?
As I told you before, when the Hungarian people walked into the place where I was born yesterday, that girl, that Christian girl who used to live opposite us, she used to see my father doing Kiddush, and the closest friend turned away like that. And then I realized that I'm not Jew. But I know that I'm Jewish, you know what I mean? But a friend is a friend.
So when gradual discriminatory laws started to come in, do you remember anything else that happened with your non-Jewish friends at school? Were there any other incidences like
Well,
that?
we stopped going to school because they came in, you know, I mean, when the German came in, German people walked in. Yeah, I think so, yes. We were not allowed to go outside, I don't know, from 8 o'clock to the next day or something. Then we used to wear that yellow star. But still with the yellow, I used to have a very nice bike. I used to clean it from the morning. And when anybody looked at my bike, you know, they have to clean it. And I still with the, sometimes I took off I didn't want to wear the star. I don't know why. And I used to ride to go through, and I used to drive the bike without holding the wheel, you know. And once they caught me, where is the star? I said, it fall down upstairs. I was in big trouble then, and then they told me they ever catch me.
Who's they?
Pardon?
Who is they?
Well, the Hungarian, and there was somebody, I think a Hungarian soldier. Caught me not to read the star. We were not allowed to go to the street. I don't remember 8 o'clock, from 7 o'clock till next morning. I don't remember this part, and that was a big chorus. It was already before Pesach, you know. It is very close to the ghetto, and that's that.
So what did you do when you were no longer able to go to school every day?
Shaking like with the family together. I think next door, the shul was the second place. We made open the fence, we made the door, so when something happens that next door people, they were sure they could come to our place. And you know, then my brother was called into the army, to the Hungarian army, because they could, the eldest brother, they could drive cars. It was a few cars in the family. It wasn't like now everybody had a car. That time only a few people. From my mother's side, my grandfather had a car and he had a chauffeur, a Jewish boy, a very nice. And I remember he wanted to marry my sister, the one who died. Es hat nicht gepasst. You know what it is? You know what it is? Es ist nicht gepasst. Sie heiraten sie Chauffeur. And that's what I remember, you know, those things. It comes back, and he came from a good family, but it wasn't. The sky is the limit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that.
So how else can you describe the anti-Semitism that was
In our
coming
city.
about? Mm-hmm.
So when the Hungarian people came in, I think first the Hungarian soldiers walked in. There were some boys who used to be friendly with my brothers. And there you see like the Hrinkagard, I don't know if you ever heard of, you know, those who belonged to the anti-Semitic party used to wear white stockings and like the Hitler, you know, the Hitler Jugend.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my brother came home once and he said, Bishop was his name, Steve. He turned his head away and I said hello and he didn't answer. So it happens only once to you, you know, and suddenly you learn, doesn't matter the age, that I'm the one who is going to, you know, to be quiet and see what's happening. And when you don't go to the street, you are scared to go out because you don't know what will happen. When they beat you, they beat people up there as well, but that was a different. They beat you because you are a Jew. Matter of fact, in the town there used to be a very, how you call it, not a Jewish man, he had a lot of farms and he, Nemesh, you know, like the Queen's family, you know, something. But
Prominent.
Yes, small fellow, he had a beard. And the first thing he got at, they thought that he's a Jew. And they beat him up so much, you know, and...
He wasn't a Jew?
He wasn't a Jew, he was something, number one in but the soldier, the Hungarian soldier, didn't know it. They saw it as a man with a walking stick, you know, very
beard.
elegant with a hat, like, you know, like when you go into the, where do you know this hat, how you call it?
A top hat.
Top hat, yes, in walks proudly on the street and no
star.
Nothing. Where he got it.
Did you see that or you heard about it?
We saw it, but we had to run into the house, you know.
You saw them beating?
Yes. Until they believed him that he's a noble man. I remember my father cut off his beard after that, and many people, many Jewish. He had a beard, just not a long one, my father, you know, but he cut it off.
Completely took it off?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I remember when we arrived to Auschwitz, my mother used to bake, when we went to the ghetto, some honey biscuits, so we should, because we heard something they're taking to pick some fruit or something, bakeries. And when we went to the train, they told us, herauf, We had to walk and leave behind everything. I don't know how many people were there. One of them used to live here, but she died, an elderly lady, and my mother could hardly sit down, and I was standing, and my sisters were standing in one leg. The boys were in Arbeitslager, you know, they were, as I told you, two of them were called in as a driver, soldiers to the Hungarian army, because they could not, that time wasn't many people who drive cars, you know, who did it. And the youngest boy was somewhere in, I don't know the name of the city. So suddenly we hadn't got anything. We took into the wagon, and somehow my mother used to sit there, and the way she was sitting and looking at us, you know, sometimes I didn't have room for my one leg. Then you imagine it, there was nothing to hide, and my child, sorry, I can't give you anything to eat. It was so hard, you know, we couldn't. And when we arrived to Auschwitz, I don't have to tell you that, I don't know where I am, hell, heaven, what is that, the smell. And my mother had one white shirt in her hand, and I was holding her hand. Two sisters were behind, and then she said that at least Daddy will have a clean shirt for Shabbos. And by that time, Mengele cut. And I didn't know where to turn, you know. My mother went to the right, and I was running after my mom. Then I didn't see my sister. And then I was kicked to the opposite side. That was a very, very painful experience. For days we didn't know where we are. And I couldn't get used to the smell. That smell, when I was even in Dachau or in Auschwitz after the war, I still got the smell in my nose. And I used to ask those from Czechoslovakia and the girls, what is that? You know, the flame to the sky. And they said, it's your mother's. Even it's my mom coming. She's in the Himmelkommando, that had they pointed out, you know, she didn't, we just walked like, and I think we got some rum as well in the cup of tea, or what they gave us, some dark water, you know. We couldn't understand what it took us months until we found out that this smoke, human being, and that's that. Unbelievable. Yes, with that thought went my mother to the crematorium, that Dad will have a clean shirt. She was holding it like that in her hand. Unbelievable, unbelievable. I took Tommy to Dachau, and one of my sisters came as well. She didn't want to come in. She didn't want to come in again, the smell. I said, Toby, I just feel, her name is Toby, that I'm in Auschwitz again. There was once an experience, it was in November when we dismantled to crematorium by hand. It came a transport from Slovakia, and there used to be two girls, Müller girls from Vranov, Slovakia. They were there for 4 years, and we were very close friends. And suddenly someone was running. Anna, she was working with Mengele, a doctor. I don't know if you heard it. She was a Jewish woman. She lives in Adelaide. That those two girls, mother and one of the sisters, came. Should have seen what happened. Everybody was running here and there until they didn't burn. They let them into the candles, two people. But that was something, something unbelievable, you know. I mean, those girls were there for nearly 4 years already, you know. And once I had a very bad experience. You know, you heard from Anna, the girl, the woman, Dr. Anna, who used to work with Mengele when they selected. She's a good friend of mine. She, as I told you, she lives in Adelaide. And
What is her surname?
Anna. Anne. You never heard the name?
Her surname though?
Surname I don't remember. I don't know she got married. But I can get it for you. You see, there was some gates, all behind some gates, you know, with the wires. And once I saw my auntie there. And I knew that goes into the crematorium, that transport, and one is a healthy one, and one goes out to work, and one goes out to the crematorium. And I was running to my two sisters. They used to work in the kitchen, and therefore I didn't work. I was always running. And I used to carry heavy stuff. I always kept, one row went like this, the other one came empty-handed like that, and I always was in the empty-handed. And when they caught me, what I got, don't ask me, I still got it. I had to carry some big bricks, and when I ran to my sister to the house kitchen, that auntie's here, and she goes to the crematorium. It was cold, and I had a sleeveless jumper, and I threw it in for her. And she asked me, "Where is your mother?" And I started to cry. She didn't know that she was an and she had 2 children there still. And is it clear what I'm telling you?
Mm-hmm.
And she said the German had a garden, carrots and things like that. And she said, "Pull out me a carrot." I said, "Listen, Auntie Irene, if I do that, they will shoot me." And I was running to my sister, and she got my jumper. And there was a Drexler, a German SS woman, and she caught me. She caught me and she put me into the same transport which goes into the gas. My sister came, 2 sisters, and they're going to call me. And I said, "I can't go out." Somehow it happened, a miracle, that they went to Anna. With some protection you can always do something. Those girls who were young, and they were running to Anna, and then she said, "Don't worry, I didn't have not one spot on my body, Then Mengele goes to select this transport again. We were in the zona. You know what is in the zona? In the bath. But it was closed. And tell me to hold my clothing on the right hand, so Mengele could see that I haven't got my body, I looked like I look now. I was a bit thinner, now I'm thicker from the cortisone. And I went through, there was Mengele and there was Anna. And just Mengele said, back to the transport, to where they were going to burn you. With very high people, running here and running there. One of the Dr. Tauber Julia, lives in Tel Aviv, and who went to the Revere. You know what is the Revere? Where the hospital. If you are there, they can't take it to the crematorium. You can imagine what happened there. Tauber, Juliska and Anna, what they done. At night time, that was lucky, I don't know. The healthy transport went first away, and we stayed there for the night. And 2 girls came in and took me to the hospital. They bandaged my leg with another girl, Tsunci. She was there for 4.5 years. She's from Homana, Slovakia. And they kept me. They put my leg in a plaster on the hospital, and next morning suddenly I look out from the corner, from the bed, how it looked, and I see Tsunci, the Frau dressed, an SS woman is here. And then when she saw us, she said, she couldn't do anything, because I was with Tsunci there, And she said, "You schmuckstick, I won't leave Auschwitz before I don't see you burn." Can you imagine, the bed was shaking, I wouldn't mind to get, finished with my life. And then somehow a miracle happened. They sent her somewhere, and the A-lager where we were staying went over to the Zigeuner lager. Then I was separated from my 2 sisters for a while, but with a connection, because I done something good. The people were, the older people were helping me, so I got together again with my sister. But that was a very frightful experience. And the girl who was with me, she lives in Tel Aviv, so we still are sending New Year card and things like that. Is it clear what I tell you there?
It's very clear.
But you know, when I closed my eyes and through the window, my sister was climbing to my other sister's shoulder and going, "Get out, come out." You know, I couldn't get out from there. But, you know, it was closed, the SS was standing there. So things like that, it always happened.
Okay, you've jumped ahead to Auschwitz, and I would like to take you back. We'll come back to it. But can you describe the day that you had to leave your home? You were taken to the ghetto, is that right? From home, you were taken to the Winkler ghetto.
Yeah. You remember I told you that Dr. Chanadi, the doctor, he was the city doctors, you know, and he was so, I mean, from where I knew, from the joint, because I was always involving, they used to call me Mitzvahiden, you know what it is? I used to help for the poor people and things like that.
Even as a young girl?
And a young girl. You know, they used to come from the country, some old woman, or I used to take from, my mother used to make some compote, you know what is compote? For winter, and I used to take out what my mother didn't give me, and I took it to the hospital for the sick people. And they came back and said that I saw your daughter there and there and there. That's how I used to live, you know, it gave me pleasure to give. And when they took to the front of our house was occupied by Germans, you know. We had a big house, about 6 rooms. They left only 2 rooms for us, and the back part, you know, where the house, how you call it, the caretaker used to live, and the lady, the Jewish girl. And I went, Chanadi.
When did it become occupied by the Germans?
Date, darling, don't ask date.
Approximately, what year even? Was it 1939?
Well, yes, it was the German 44, somewhere before we went to the ghetto.
Ah, 44.
Yes. And I remember one of the boys, a German boy, went to my mother and said in German, I could understand it, they tried to hide your daughters. We didn't know what does it mean. We used to listen to the radio, the Professor McCarthy from America. You know, Auschwitz, girls, we didn't understand it. You know, we used to close everything and listen to that was the, how you call it, nobody, you know, you were not allowed to listen to that station because that was an American station. But anyway, when ghetto has to be, we had some more flats in the house, Jewish inhabitants, and then Dr. Chanadi, what I told you, he was so good. He said, don't worry. He put on the inside, on the corridor, that my mother has typhus. But that saved us only for a week or for 5 days. You know what I mean? It wasn't true. But he tried to help us. So the house wasn't allowed, you know, we were not allowed to go to the ghetto because if some typhus, you know, that it was a risk from him as well, you know. Doctor, I don't know how you call it, the city doctors who belongs to the government, not our doctor, you know. And after they came, her house, so then we went to the, and therefore I wanted to pay back for that man, you know, who first of all wanted to take me to look after the children. And because he went somewhere else, I don't know, here another place where he had to go, and so nobody will recognize me, so he can save me.
So your brothers had already left home at this stage, is that right?
Yeah, we went to the ghetto.
When you went to the ghetto, who was with you?
Who was with me?
Your parents?
My parents. Only one, the elder sister was married in Hungary, and the other 2 sisters were with me. And my brother was in an Arbeitslager. To matter of fact, he did send me some shliachim. You know what is shliachim? To the Zionist organization. messengers. They wanted to take me up to Budapest, and I can hide. Again, I couldn't leave my family. Somebody came, Shlomo, I believe, came then. You know, they came with black papers and said, "Go back."
So just before you went to the ghetto, after Hitler came to power, what happened in the years 1939 up till April 44 when you were sent to the ghetto?
Well, as I told you, we were not allowed to go out, I don't know, from 6 o'clock till 5.
Curfew.
You know, how you said?
Curfew.
Curfew. And we were in a shaking. Everything, every Friday night we was waiting what will happen, because everything happened on Fridays. You know, when they came in over looking for if we are hiding something. Well, once I was hiding someone, they caught me, you know, so we were hardly, therefore, you know, next door neighbor, we had a door made so they don't have to walk. We were afraid to walk. Once when it happened, they caught me that I didn't, when I went to the bicycle through the city. So it was advisable not to go out, not to show your face, because people, you know, they could find out anything.
And do you remember your parents talking about what was going on elsewhere in Europe?
Well, my father used to go to the shul every morning, go Friday night. He used to say, they say that one, they say that one, but we knew what's happening because people were, social life didn't exist. You know, so all the Zionist organization and things like that, they stopped. And we were just waiting, we were talking, they're going to take us to pick fruits somewhere.
That's when they came and took you to the ghetto.
Yeah.
And how did you get to the ghetto?
Oh, that's the reason that I can't go back to the city where I was raised. On the, how you call it, on the, not on the footpath, how you call where the horses are going, there were not many cars in the city.
Road.
On the road. And my mother used to cook some biscuit because they said we can take something, and then we were not allowed to walk on the footpath. It is a terrible, humiliating, depressing. It is still in me, and that's the reason. You know, and that the second neighbor, as I told you, he was a bit lefted. You know, they were tailors, and they were still waving on the. From their house, they had a beautiful home, you know. And it was quite far to walk to the ghetto, but we did that. Very humiliating, very. And leave a beautiful home and walk there. We didn't know what else is coming the next, you know.
So you went to this closed ghetto, and it was called the Winkler Ghetto?
Well, yes, there was a big, very big space, if I find out how you call it in English. There used to be a factory for bricks, you know what I mean, for all that. And I think they couldn't exist anymore, and they find that part, you know. I don't even, perhaps we used to live in tents. I don't remember where we used to sleep, really.
It was a closed ghetto.
Oh,
there
yes,
was a wall around it?
Wall around that, police were standing, not police, those vervluchte German and Hungarian soldiers were standing by the gate, you know, who wants to get out or get in. And I don't even remember what kind of food we did I got, really, because then the whole world went
blank.
Blank, yes.
You did say that you had a pass to go in and out
of the
ghetto.
Yes, every day I went out.
You went back to the town, back to where your home
was?
Yes.
We didn't have you know, our city had, I think, 28,000 inhabitants, you know. We didn't have a tram or train, I don't remember. As I used to tell you, I used to use my bicycle. And the OMJA, you know, the joint community still existed. I still went up there, and I still went to the hospital, and I still find out. And there was a Jewish woman, Dr. Yakubovich, and who was still there. I don't know how long was she still free, but she always told me, Auntie, that was my pet name, Anna, you know, Auntie, tried to not to go back, and I said, I can't leave my parents. And my mother used to tell me, go, my child. No,
Who gave you the pass to leave the ghetto?
they joined. You know, I was quite known in the city. And the reason, I don't know why, it was, and I don't know what else have I done, but I know I went every day up to the office, you know, and as I told you before, I used to hide some people, even without my parents knowing them. So I always took the risk.
You hid them in the ghetto. In the ghetto you hid people.
I remember that Dr. Chanadi, I went up to them and I was kosher. I'm still kosher and they wanted to give me dinner. And I said, no, thank you. You know, it was built into me. I said, I'm not hungry, thank you very much. Believe me, I was hungry.
So you stayed in that ghetto for about 1 month.
I think so, yes. And then they said everybody can take the parcel with them to the train. And they said, leave behind, that was some German soldier, and up. And I think about 50 or 60 people used to live in those carriages. We didn't have where to stand. We had a small window with wires around them. Don't ask me, it was people went crazy there. No food. Once or twice it stopped. But we didn't know where we are. When we arrived again, the noise and our house. I remember only Herein and Heraus, you know, when they took me from the ghetto in to the Viehwagonen, and when we arrived to Birkenau, out. The shouting, it was not normal. It took really time until you could get it together again there.
And when you arrived at Auschwitz, did you know where you were?
No, I didn't know. I told you before, I didn't know if I'm in the hell or in the heaven. The smell, and just looking. And we got Brom as well, you know, that makes us a bit sleepy. And I used to ask from Slovakia, the girls, tell us, where are we? Or where is our parents? And they used to say, in the Himmelkommando, upstairs. And we couldn't get it. We didn't know what it is, you know, the shouting. And get up early in the morning, 4:30 or 4 o'clock, for Zelappell and things like that. Just your mind didn't register those things, only later on.
So every day, did you have an appel?
Oh yeah, in the morning and in the evening. Once I was beaten terrible because, excuse me, you couldn't go to the toilet. You know, I got here a photo. The toilet is there, 50 meters on both sides were holes, and here we used to, or the Aufseherin or an SS man, schnell weiter, and you had to leave it, you know, once a day. Once I had to pass some water, and Vachelide was my sister, and there's supposed to be what, and it was an empty room, and my sister said, go there, and the SS man came, and they caught me. You know, for hours I have to kneel, I think, you know, and he gave me a bucket of sand and hold it up like that. And if I just couldn't, it was beating me to death. And then one of the blockaders, the Giskes was her name, said, let her go, you know, she had her punishment. Because you couldn't go out from the barrack, you couldn't do, you know what I mean. So my two sisters were crying there, and the SS were watching me. I couldn't cry, because if you cry, they beat you as well. So that kind of punishment they had. Or a few times we had to break big stones like this table, top of the table, big ones. And they gave us that, not a hammer, kalapach, you know what you are hammering in, how you call that?
A pick?
That's a different story, the pick, to make small stones.
An axe?
Yes, and you know the skin came up, and the bone, that is still in one piece. And my sister tried to come and help, and didn't have enough energy to lift up that hammer, not hammer.
X.
X, yes. Or when we had to take big, today we had to take those things in a grave or from where in a hole, and next day we had to bring it back, and we had a little, it has got one in the middle, one wheel, and you carry it.
A wheelbarrow.
Wheelbarrow, and that always fall over. Don't ask, you know, and then if you can't go along with them, they hit you to death. Or we had to carry where the tram is running, how you call it, because the horse energy was too, the horse can't do those things. We had to carry, how you call it, where the train is running?
The tracks.
Track, you know, in the winter.
The train tracks.
In the winter, your skin came up. You can't cry. You haven't got what to bend and if you say something, you just, you know, we had to carry there from there, I don't know how many meters, and in next day we had to carry them back, and if you show them your hand is raw, you know, in the winter it was frozen, and then to get, I don't know, unbelievable, because they can't use horses, because that's for the horses is too heavy to do. Human energy is much, Jewish human energy is much, much easier. My sisters were good to me, you know, because with this business they helped me a lot, and I couldn't follow them really. You know, I wanted to give up because I vermischt. You know, that's from the big stories especially, and I showed to my sister, look, how can I, you know, how cold is that, not icy cold, that shocking in January. Unbelievable, you know, it's just weiter, blows, weiter, you can hear it in your ears. Food was nothing, black water, cup of tea, or sometimes in a blanket. I didn't want to, you know, and it was very funny, I was very fussy. 3 sisters were standing together, and 2 elderly ladies, one of them died, we were very close. And if they gave me 1 cup, because if you had an own cup, you were a very rich person. And if I would have to drink from someone else, I couldn't drink, I can't, you know, that's me. So after my sister I drank, you know, if they put me in another row at the Ceylapel, I couldn't drink those black water what they gave me. Just couldn't. I would rather die. That is a curse as well, you know that. And
How many times a day were you given food?
well, if they gave food, when we had Ceylapel, we had in a small, if someone had a cup, you were so rich when you had a spoon. You know, or a cup like that, you would, Rothschild, you know. Mm-hmm. In the morning, and people used to swallow, you know, in my, 5 people used to stay. So my sister, me, and 2 ladies from the same town, right? And we didn't quarrel, because my sister always have another drink, but they used to watch how many times
You would swallow.
yes, and they beat you, you know, next door, you know, your friends, just 1, because they gave me so much, just a little bit, and then sometimes they used to give some cooked potatoes in a blanket you had to carry. It was filthy, dirty. Or you get a half, and you came to your row, they said that is, no, nothing. When I told you that we were in Ravensbrück, that is a very, very big camp. We were there for days from Auschwitz when we came, and then they asked if you, they didn't give us to eat, if you come to work in the forest, you will get food. So all 3 of us went. And we were standing, they gave us something for the first one in a row, and when they came to us, they said, it's keine, it's none. When they looked at each other, you know, all that, but we were hungry, and next day they came, we were at the last. Who wants to come to the work? You know, we had to, very heavy work, and you will get food. And then my sister said, you know, let go to her because we were so hungry that we couldn't hardly walk. And my sister said, no, let's go from the, to be the first, not the last. And what do you think? Where did I stand to start to give food? From the back. And when they came to us, no more food, So since then we didn't go anywhere. And then they asked once that who wants to come to Retsov, when I told, and my sister said, listen, wherever they go, because it was a very frightful experience to sit in a car, in a big, truck. Doesn't matter where they take us, let's go. And then they take us to the smaller camp where we got bed and we got food and everything.
Let's go back a bit. When you were in Auschwitz, were you sleeping together in the same bunk with your sisters?
Oh yeah, sleeping. Don't talk so high. Sitting on my leg. You see, when we got this uniform, that grey something.
Grey and white stripe.
And you see, one, two, three,
Bunks.
on the bunks, and we were in the middle. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have room. We was just sitting like gypsies, and my leg was hurting. So I gave for the top one my portion of bread, and I took the belt, they had a belt, and I knocked my leg, so I could, my leg was standing like that, and I was in a lying position. Did I explain to you? Anyway, they took my bread, but I couldn't stay long, because it's a terrible situation to lie down and your leg is on the... So, and then with my sister we went on the lowest one where the ground is. And such a big rats were running off, shocking. We didn't have any blanket on us. We were, if you were lucky, you could sit or just hanging your leg down.
So what were you swapping your bread for?
I tell you, I couldn't sit. I had to lie down on my back, and my leg was in a situation, can you remember? I was holding up my both leg, and there was a little something, and he was holding my leg.
Through the belt?
Yes,
It suspended your legs up.
But it didn't work hard. But otherwise we were just sitting, because they put out, I think sometimes 15, 20 people in a terrible situation. If somebody, or you give your portions, allow me to put my leg on your knee. Well, where shall I put my leg? It is, and then when we went down to sleep, I haven't seen such a big rats in my life.
Rats?
Yes, the dams, on the ground. No blanket, it was so cold. People used to shiver. Auschwitz is cold, it is. You couldn't be sick, you couldn't sneeze, you couldn't do anything.
Do you remember discussions that you had with your sisters?
Yeah, I was crying a lot. I wanted to have soda water, I told you. I was very hungry. And when they gave this piece of bread, I ate it at once. I was a young girl, And when my sister used to cut so thin the bread, I don't know from where he had, and I used to look in their eyes. And they were very angry. Don't look at their eyes. Who told you not, I told you not to eat a whole lot. How big was the bread? What we got is dark bread. Something like that. So what was it to eat it up? I remember once they gave us quargli, I don't know, cheese. It was smelly, and we threw it to the toilet. You don't believe me that next time when we went to the toilet, we tried to get out of it, because I realized that, that people are eating those things. Potato, half a potato was gold, 40 karat gold. It wasn't washed. I don't know the tea, what kind of tea it was, just dark something. And the bread, dark bread. And I don't really remember what did they give for dinner, or they gave us or nothing, or beat us, I don't know. I don't remember. I was always hungry. Always hungry. Why are you crying, my sister said. Want to have some soda water. You couldn't have water, not soda water, you know.
You were dreaming about it.
Yes, but when we went to machine, you know, I told you, lucky I had a boot. You know, I told you I didn't let. And he picked up some snow to have it as a drink. They killed me, the Germans saw them. We were not allowed to.
Did that happen to you?
Yes. And when they beat me, I don't know if you can see it here, and I looked, where is the Marschemoinik? You know what is Marschemoinik? I couldn't see him. When we walked around machine, I tried again. I was burnt. You know, when you are thirsty, you can go along longer without food and without liquid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, did they beat you with a stick?
Not the bayonet, the back from the bayonet, you know. My sister couldn't come close to me, and I wasn't crying when they saw me. I was standing just like a statue. It happened in Retsov. I can prove it to you. He must have been a good guy. He told me...
It didn't happen in Auschwitz?
What, this one?
Yes.
Yeah, but from Auschwitz we went to Retsov, as I told you,
Yeah.
from...
Yes.
From Birkenau, from Ravensbrück we went to Retsov, you know.
Yes, yes.
And there used to be an SS boy. And we were very careful to stay together with my sisters, you know. And he wanted to give me some bread. And he told me in German, take it, you are a nice girl. And I told him, because we were not allowed to talk back, I rather die than to take something from a German. He didn't have anything. Anything. And my sister said, don't you ever talk back, you know, but he must, you know, like, I have to admit it, you know, he wanted to give me some food. I wouldn't take it from him. And believe me, I was so hungry.
Do you remember at the time feeling grateful that you had your sisters with you?
I wouldn't imagine not to, you know, I mean, what would I do on my own? I wouldn't stay alive on my own, I can tell you that.
Mm.
Especially when your hands are raw, you know, and I got a lot of beating. Once I got beaten up, it wasn't from a German, it was from a Blockheltester. You know what it is? Giska was her name. She was wilder than the SS. My sister came, the one who is in Hungary, and she nearly killed her. If you ever put your hand on my sister, I kill you. No, so, yeah, I could never, you know, I wouldn't struggle alive. So we were there, three of us, to help each other,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And when we could, we helped for, I got some in Israel, some people who had typhus. We used to climb. My sister used to work in the German kitchen, and I used to steal some food, and I used to take at night time to the revier to feed those people. They are living in, one lives in Tel Aviv, and one lives, I think, in Herzliya. And she came back, she was very, very sick, but I used to feed her.
So you kept doing that sort of voluntary work?
Yeah, why not?
Even in Auschwitz?
In Auschwitz, I can prove it to you, I can give you the address. I can bring some letters. One of them sent me a mother who holds a child. I can bring it to you. It will be written in Hungarian. You won't be able. Do I move? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But she gave me to remember, you know, that as a mother helps the child. And then
So rather than take the food for yourself?
Yeah, I was never hungry, really. I was hungry, but I was too proud to admit it.
How did you get the extra food from the kitchen? Did your sister?
My sister was working there, and at night time, with my other sister, we used to go, rishkasha, cooked rice, you know, they used to have for the SS people. My sister arranged that in a cubble. You know what is a cubble? You know what is a cubble?
Dish.
And not in a frigidaire where you keep the milk, or in a big one to take it to the revier, to the hospital, and meat. And when I was knocking the window, on front of the kitchen there used to waste something, you know, a hole, and it was some wire here. How you call it, you know?
Drain.
Drain, and my leg went in those two, you know, one leg. And the meat was, you could smell the meat because I don't know, it was not boiled, something, it was, you know, they got tucked. And I said to my sister said, pull out. I said that I can't. And I heard that the SS is walking around there. And I don't know, luckily how my sister started to pull, so that leg came out, and then we were taking the food to the sick people. And it was a very good revenge, you know, that we still help. And those people came, I wasn't afraid that I will get the typhus, you know, typhus they call it, you know, that who cares? But we helped them, and they are alive. They had children. And but that was funny. After the next day I was laughing. Can you imagine in one of your leg there, this meat stinks from the, you know, the smell, and the SS is walking from there. It wasn't an easy job. Or for instance, they used to ask to took from the car some bread, you know, those kind of bread. I was taught, or margarine to put between our underpants if we had one. And you walked like this, you know, because they looked for you, they didn't look there, and so we had a lot of bread there. We gave whoever wanted to. Oh, my sister taught me when I'm going to wash up the spice, how you call the spice, you know, where the food is.
The pantry.
Pantry. And they gave us a big bucket and a rug. I don't want to get up, but she showed me take the margarine, push it down, put it between your leg, and put the one or two into the bucket, put the rag on the bucket because they search you. So I arrived as a rich woman when I came out, you know.
So where did you take it to? Back to your...
To the barrack, yes.
To the barrack.
Of course. Everybody had it.
And you shared it?
Everything has been shared. If you want, I can give you the address from those people in Israel. One of them used to be here, the lady, as I told, but she died. Mrs. Popper was her name. And the SS women, they looked around you, but they didn't look in the bucket, because that was on the bottom, and the rug was on the top of it. So we walked out. They could, they finished. You know, situation sometimes, you know, this brings up the impossible sometimes, you know.
Do you remember capos at Auschwitz? Did you have any contact with capos?
One of them beat me, but otherwise one they beat me terrible. What was the reason? I don't know. It was a Polish couple. One was a Jewish and one was a Polish. Stella was her name. She hit me, you know, wherever she, did you hear the name? Wherever she hit me, I fell on that side, you know. She was wilder than the Germans, than the SS. I don't know how the way they hit, you know, that's just... We came to the conclusion that those Polish people, the Christian people, or the Latvian, they were worse than the Germans. If they find out that you are Jewish, they fingered, because we had a Magndavid here, you know, with the...
Did you work every day at Auschwitz?
I tried not to. I told you before. Once they caught me, because one of them carrying some stones this way, and I always came on that way empty-handed, and then the SS said, "The smoke stick, I can only see you coming." So I was carrying something a few times, and I saw that she's not. Look, if you let yourself, verschlufte, you know what it is? I tried not to, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. That was very, to breaking the stones. My sister used to work in the kitchen, both of them, in the Brezhinka. You know what is Brezhinka, where they collected the clothing. So from there on I had always some warm jumper. And I always was hiding. I was lucky in that way, Once I had a position at the barrack, those girls all had some boyfriends. The lagerers there and who is charged on the barrack, those Jewish girls. The Giska was her name. They come from a very religious family, and they picked me to be the, how you call that? I had to stay outside, and my head has to go like this to watch if any SS woman or man comes into the barrack. Torwache, they used to call it, I used to stand here where the entry is, and my face had to go like that to watch. Once I was tired. My head was tired, and it came and I said, God, we came, and she find them together, Motjeko was together with Giska in the room, they had a separate. Oh, ja, but the Kim, who's got the energy to watch from the morning till the evening? I don't want any position. Then I saw when I was at Torwache, they used to give from the cheese, and the girls, the girls who was charged on the barrack used to take off from this little margarine. There was Leo, she lives in Homona still, and I said, Leo, why do you take off, not from me, but from everybody? You are richer than the whole camp. That's not fair. And you say that Yom Kippur, she was fasting. I said, that's you're making a lot of, how you call it, sin. What the German gave, you shouldn't cut off. Not to malum, not to take the... And then I said, it's not for me. I didn't have any job, thanks God, and I wouldn't take any job. Once I heard there was a Dr. Tauber Julishko, she lives in Tel Aviv, and there was a Romanian, very nice woman, had a baby. I never saw how a baby comes through to the world. And it was nighttime, and she called me to hold the leg apart. Excuse me, I was very sick to see that. And the baby came, and Julishko went, and the baby is gestorben. We put it in the oven. The next morning, she came to Zelaper, that girl, and somehow they found out and they burned her. It was a terrible experience. Terrible. I said to Julishko, next time, look for somebody else. You know what I mean? I was a young girl. I didn't know how the baby comes through, but she was screaming like hell, and she had to do something, being a doctor. She was a very nice girl, lovely woman. So that's that. The Leben goes weiter. And you wonder, how is it possible? Correct or not? You can laugh, you cry more, I don't know how I adjust myself. When I came home, I was struggling. As I told you, my brother-in-law was a doctor in Hungary. And after the war, when I went with my uncle in 1948 to Auschwitz, I didn't know what to become. What shall I do with myself? I tell you honestly, shall I be a prostitute? Should I be killing people? What, And for days, my brother-in-law used to give me brome, I used to sit in the corner, not to eat, not to laugh, not to talk. My mind.
I'm sorry, what is brome?
Brome is a tablet.
Bromide.
Bromide. And they started to my sister, so I used to be always I always had a sense of humor, and I was just looking at them like they're strangers. I didn't know what to do with myself. My sister was begging, my uncle was begging, and I was just sitting. I didn't go to bed, just sitting in the corner. Should I kill people? What shall I do? And one day I was sitting and I said, no, first of all, I wanted to go away from Europe. That was number one. And I wanted to go the same way where my parents wanted me to go. But it came just like from the humor something, But my head was something shocking. And then I decided on my own. Somebody took me over with a small handbag and a tennis racket I had with me. I went to Slovakia at night time. I went through the border. And when I arrived at night time to Czechoslovakia, it was about gemacht. We were geschlafen. We were. And then I found some connection with the Bricha. And then I felt, it is shocking. How could I do things on my own? A young girl, to go, because everywhere we're watching. And then somebody, a Pole partisan or somebody took me through at night time to the Slovakian Grunfeld, and from there to Bratislava, and then the Bricha took me up, and then at night time, walking in water. Don't ask me, I arrived to Vienna.
We'll come to that again. I'm going back to 1944. You were in Auschwitz for 1 year, and is that right? You were in Auschwitz for a year.
In Auschwitz a year and I think 2 months or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So, when you left Auschwitz, who took you out? Who instructed you to leave?
Well, the Russian coming, only the sick people stayed behind. One of the girl who used to be in typhus, who's still alive, because the Russian came so close, they were shouting. And when we went on the middle of the road, there were SS people, dogs, bicycle, and that's how we walked at night time, from Auschwitz by order, the German came after us as well. That's how, because the German, I think, next day came, the Russian came in next day to Oslo, and we left in the evening, alle heraus.
How many would have left with you at the same time?
I don't know. If I remember, the road was so big, like nearly Glen Huntly Road. And whoever couldn't walk, you couldn't help anybody, or the people came out from the street, from the houses, they wanted to throw something. They didn't let the Germans. We just had to walk across them, and I couldn't walk. My other sister couldn't walk. They were pulling me, my leg, my knee, just a little bit. And then I don't remember the place for one night before we went to where the horses are staying. How do you
A stable.
Yes, and there was a cow, and my sister, the one who lives in Hungary, you lie there, and I had to open my mouth, and she used to milk, from the cow. And it was worse because you were more thirsty and hungry. And I took off my boot, and in the morning I couldn't put it up. Don't ask me the horrors what I went through early in the morning.
Your foot was swollen.
Oh, brother, so I don't know how they pushed me in, my sister pushed me in, but my knee always couldn't take me.
It crumbled.
And they used to pull me, but it couldn't stop. You had to go. The road was terrible big. Gleiber, all those around Auschwitz, all those small camps had to be cleared because they were scared. The Russian came, I think next morning the Russian came to Auschwitz, to Birkenau.
So you walked at night?
We walked at night, 1 or 2 nights, I think, to, I told you the name,
Well, you stopped at Breslau.
Breslau. Then that was the second night or the third night, and then they threw us into open wagon and open
Wagons.
wagon, yes, and the snow was up till, I don't know, we sat on the snow in the wagon. In the summer, during the day the sun was shining, the snow was melting. In the night time, you got frozen again because it was so cold until we arrived into Germany.
So you're walking at night, and what did you do during the day?
Walking. But one night they took us into a place to rest a little bit. You know, I don't remember I remember during the day those peasants used to come and they asked for water and they throw some food, but we were not allowed to. They were sent in, the German soldiers throw them and tell them to go inside and don't give anything for them. Yep. And when we went into the wagon, every 4 corners there was soldier, an SS soldier with a gun, so you couldn't move, you couldn't, you know. One of my sister who lives in Hungary, one night, she stole the little bag from the German, what he had to eat. And she said that, you don't ask the shouting, and he couldn't find his food. But, you know, when you are hungry, there is no excuses. My sister made herself crazy, you know, she put on something on her head, and then somehow it was told, that soldier, that she took it, but he didn't punish her.
Did you feel like it was coming towards the end?
More. We just didn't know, when will the end come? You know, that's, our mind couldn't take anymore. Blank. As I told you, we got bromide, you know, that is like Valium something, or it helped for our menstruation, you know. It didn't, sometimes we had it, sometimes we didn't have it, you know, that period. That's the end of the world, or where I am, you know. I used to, never heard of Auschwitz, you know, we didn't know where we are. We didn't know where we are. Sometimes we were just looking at the towers, you know, and you were looking much, they were shouting, go further, you know, or I will shot. That's that I use this one. And still it didn't help for some people, you know what I mean? And people want, you know, and we were shaking outside at 4 o'clock. Sail up, hand around. You couldn't go close to each other. That was not allowed to keep yourself, you know, with a short sleeve and nothing on you, and standing in the snow.
So you kept walking and you got to Ravensbrück.
To Breslau, and from Breslau we got into a wagon, and you know, those Viehwagonen.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many days we went, but when we saw, you know, the German cities, it was to us something new. You know, people are living in a flat, there is a flat, people are lying in a bed. We just couldn't, it was too much to imagine.
Then in January or February 1945, you arrived at Rechov.
It is a smaller
in Germany.
Yes.
And that was a camp?
That was a German camp, but a smaller one. We had all smaller beds, you know, and there was a kitchen they gave us to eat. So we felt like Princess Diana.
There was no food restriction.
But they gave us 3 times. I think the situation was over to the end, you know what I mean. I remember when my sister was working in the kitchen, and chief, in the kitchen, a German, said to my sister that, will you save me if the war is ending? You know, they were looking then for hiding somewhere. You know, and then my sister said, if you are giving me enough food, I will save you. But I think he was the first person who gave it to the Russian. You know, this, again, when we left Retsov and went to Malkhov, the evacuation, it was so big again, like from here to the city, people going from the camps, civilian, soldiers, tanks, horses, you know, a crazy world. We just didn't know where you are.
What did you do every day in Retsov?
Again, I told you. Nothing. I was hiding. You know, you had to have talent. In Retsov, that then happened, you know, there was an airport, and it was bombed, and we had to, the airport was bombed, and we had to carry those big asphalt for days, you know. One row went, and the other row, and I always, as I could, I went with the empty-handed. I always came. They never saw me going, you know, and once they caught me. But I tried again, when can I be without carrying? No, I didn't. I would try to. That you has to have talent as well, believe me.
And you were fed. You said you were fed 3 times a day. Do you remember what you were fed?
We couldn't eat it. I told you they gave us from a glass. 5 people had to. Sorry, I moved. 5 people had to drink, and you had to watch how many times. So we didn't watch it because my sister always gave me more to swallow more. And sometimes they used to carry in a blanket on the ground some dirty potatoes, cooked potatoes. What it was, if you get one, you were a lucky person. And in the evening, if you are lucky and you had a dish somewhere, they used to give some kind of soup, liquid. But no carrots, nothing in it, just liquid. And in the morning you got a piece of bread, I think once a day or for the 2 days, I don't remember. And if it went good, then you get a piece of cheese. That kvargl was the name. It smells so terrible that the first time we threw them away. And then you got used to it, but that was that.
So how did you manage to get a cup? You said if you were lucky enough to have a cup or a dish.
My sister found somewhere. And we had a belt with a spoon. And we put it here. And if you were unlucky, they stole it during the night. So you were crying until you organized somewhere. You stole some from somebody else, you know. I really don't remember, but we had a dirty cup. Something similar like that. And
can we see this cup?
Anna?
Can we see this cup?
Yeah. And in that one they could give us the maybe that was mine, who knows, that was millions of cups now.
Just hold it up.
The soup was that for 3 of us or for 5 of us, you know. Then you were a very rich person. And if you had a spoon as well, you were Rothschild or Gary Becker or what's his name.
And where did you get this cup from?
When I was last year in Auschwitz, or 2 years ago, from the museum, you know, have you been in Auschwitz? There is some thalers and things like that, and there is a place which hasn't got a glass. And I just pulled out the thalers and this one and the crematorium. I got it where I light the candle. And one of the German Polish girls started to shout at me in Polish, "Nierob, Nierob." My sister said, "You be quiet," and showed a full number, a tattooation number, and she becomes so small, so little, you know. And I sent the colors for my brother, and there is a lot of legs, artificial legs, and whatever you want. in the museum, you know.
Could we see your number, please? Perhaps we could just put that away because it makes a bit of noise, the plastic. The plastic.
Hmm?
The bag makes a bit of noise.
Can you see it like that?
Could you read it out, please?
Hmm?
Could you read it out?
A 7759.
Okay. And that's from Auschwitz.
In Auschwitz, pardon?
That number is from Auschwitz.
From Auschwitz, yes. And 7757 and 58 was my two sisters' number.
Okay. You stayed a few weeks in Rechov.
Yeah. I'm moving again. Sorry.
And how did you leave Rechov?
Leave the camp.
By foot or by wagon?
By foot now. By foot again. I told you it had to be evacuated as well, you know, because the Russian came again. So it was such a big row on the street coming through. Everybody, I had to laugh. A day before or 2 days before, there was an alarm, you know, that the aeroplanes were bombing and the SS people were running into the bunker. And we didn't want to leave, whatever will happen, but they shout, get out from the barrack, and we had to lie down outside on the ground. And a big, something big like this on the top, what is it, the light, comes to fall there, and it looked like a big bomb. And we closed our eyes and we said, goodbye this, goodbye that. Some of them were screaming. I think one of my sisters was screaming, and that bomb fell down. Nothing happened. We were waiting, and one of the girls, a Slovakian girl, went there and could open the bomb, you know what I mean? And there was a few lines. We know you are there, don't be afraid, soon you will be free. You should have seen the face when the Germans came out from the bunkers, you know, from looking around, and we showed them the thing what fell down, because it looked like a bomb, you know, exactly. And then from then on they were very, very good to us, but I think the next or the second day we started to evacuate the camp. From the camp, when we evacuated, then we started, some people went to a farm, we were hiding there, you know, so the Russian came, followed us, you know, soon after, one day or one night, the Russian came.
So then you went to Malchov?
Malchov. But from Malchov on, you know, the world was free already. We didn't know then how to go there, where to come back, how to get back. We didn't know where we are. We sat on a train, standing there, sitting, and my sister became sick. And how long can we sit? My leg, a Russian soldier came. He didn't like me because my leg was big like that, I think from the sitting situation. When will we go? And then the front moved, and that was cut back. You know, where we were hiding, where we were sitting to go somewhere. And we didn't know what to do. We went into not a town, it was a small country, a small city, and the German woman said, we didn't know about it, we don't know anything, and we asked, where are we? How do we go back to Prague or to Hungary or things like that? First of all, she gave some soup for my sister, and then we had a Russian soldier who was Jewish, because there was a piano, it was a captain or somebody, and he sat down and started to play the Hatikva. And we all started to cry, and he done like this. You know, he was hiding his Jewishness. And then my sister, the other sister, went to him, look, can you arrange something? My sister, one of my sisters is sick, we would like to go back wherever we can. And then he was good enough, you know, he put us again to a Viehwagen, and then somehow we find ourselves. We walked more than we went by the train, you know. But that time it was very difficult to get further until we arrived to Budapest, and there were again the joint who gave you some legitimation, you know, your, how you call it in English, the identification, and then until we get again then to the sister, when my sister used to live in Hungary, it took days and days. First we went through to Czechoslovakia, and then we got free, and we didn't have, I remember the city where I used to live with my family, we went up to the joint and they said, look, we haven't got what to eat. And then they said, Weinstock Einickel have got more to eat. You know, said, believe us, we haven't got what to eat, so we used to take from next door, the house was there from my family, the raw apple, that's what we ate, because the joint said that the kinder from the Weinstock Einickel should have more to eat, you know, without. Then my uncle came home and we started to rebuild our life, just to get out from how far, what is far enough, you know. Spent, I think, 2 years in Vienna. It wasn't easy, that's that. You wouldn't believe it that people can go through something. You can't give it back the way what happened. Maybe a few years back my mind would work more clearly, you know, and it's not easy.
Do you remember the feeling of freedom?
No, it was very difficult because stupidly I asked my sister, wie will me schlucken? At least, you know, that's true, ask them. And my sister said, die is verrekt, die is meshiga. At least we didn't have a problem where to sleep, we had a bunk, you know. So how do I have the feeling from freedom? Wie will me schluffen? Bis jetzt habe ich gehad, wie sie schluffen, at least. And I had a dach, a roof. So that was that. Life can produce a lot of situation, correct? They looked at me and said, are you crazy? I said, I don't know. We were misluffen. Yes, at least was we me essen. It's very important, but we were against schluffen. You felt covered, you know, at least you had a wooden bank where to sleep. Isn't it funny to ask a question like that? Really? Now I can see the comic part of it.
So what did you do after that? What happened next?
I told you I went again back to Auschwitz. 48 I went to Vienna.
How long did you spend in Auschwitz?
There, that was a transport, 2 days. And then I wanted to get out as far. My brother was in America after the war. That man, you know, that Galach helped him to go out as a rabbi.
The priest.
The priest, yes. And my brother was begging me to go to America. I never liked America. And my uncle and my auntie came to Vienna. And they said they're going to Australia. I knew, where is Australia? Like you knew where is Beraxas, you know? How did you get? Zoek ik voor mijn onkel, is de zwaard? Het is zeer waard. Zoek ik dan ga je, wie zou ik gaan? So, I used to play, you know, I went up to the joint and said, can you get me a permit? Then I will work for you. To Australia. My uncle goes there, and that's how it happened. And I came to Australia. Every time that I went to work, I didn't know how to work in a factory. I hadn't seen a factory in my life. I couldn't sew, I couldn't see a needle. You know what I mean? Here it is normal for people to go to factory. In Europe, a better class Jewish person didn't know a factory, you know, or didn't mix with factory people. Every day I was sacked. That's not a joke, you know.
So what sort of work were you doing?
Whatever they got. I went to Bristol and Myers. I hate them, you know, where they make toothpaste and things like that. And my hand didn't take it because it got so swollen. I was running something, you know how you call it?
A production line.
Yeah, and I had to run and run. So I daughter, be in the windows is full here. They come, you finished your job. What is this? No work. All right, so I went to another work. And every time they sacked me. It went so far that I went to a Jewish in Tyler Square. I used to live in Sydney. Mr. Stern, have you got a job for me? Was why Constance? Good. What? Do you know this one or that one? I said, I haven't seen a factory in my life. So he put me in the summer when I arrived to Sydney. You know, I arrived in a jumper and a coat. I didn't know the Sydney weather, and I nearly melted. It was the humidity in the coat. And I took off one jumper and a sleeveless jumper and the coat and a halish from the heat. He put me to pressing, you know, those ironing, you know, the big, heavier. I picked up again, my hand was swollen like that. But I wanted to stick to something that I should have a job, security something. And I went up to Mrs. Frank, to the joint. I had a very nice recommendation from Vienna, from the joint, and Mrs. Frank said, look, I want to go back to Europe. I can't live here. You try. So anyway, I told them, all right, I tried to lift up in this heat, to pressing, you know. Just water running from me in the heat, and I went home. First of all, I didn't find the place where we lived. Don't ask me. We didn't take the address, you know, with my brother-in-law. I was working there for a fortnight, and I got back my, how do you say that in English? Not the proudness, stability. And I become very angry with that man. First of all, he's not allowed to give for a girl that kind of work because that's a man's job. Mm-hmm. You know, I become myself, and I was so proud of myself. I told him I finished the job. You know what I felt? I don't want to work in, and I said to him, you can be ashamed of yourself. I told him in Yiddish, a man who didn't went through what I went through. You are not allowed to give for the woman a kind of job what you gave me, and you didn't give me any money. I begged him, please don't pay me, just let me stay here. And he didn't pay me. I was working like 6 horse, you know. And I said, you shouldn't have done it. And if I wouldn't be a decent person, I would go to the police or telling you because you can lose your factory. But I was so proud, you know, that I was the one who sacked myself, not they. And that man, Mr. Stern, it was a man factory, had a son. And at Yom Kippur I met him, and he came to me, I hope you won't do anything to my parents. I said, I won't do it, but you tell your father. If I would be him, I would hide. And I went up to the joint to tell Mrs. Frank, and he said, and you done the right thing. You know, I mean, not to pay, at least give me I told him, you didn't even ask if I have got money for lunch or if I have got money to come from North Sydney, you know Sydney, to come here to the factory, and you took it for granted, not to pay. I was so then. And he tried to apologize. I said, never in my life I will forgive you. And I walked out so proudly, so high. Now and then I went to a Lola Lane. It used to be a raincoat factory, German Jewish, and then at the end up I used to work there in the office because I went to the Tyler School, or how you call it, to pick up some language. And when I got married, they made my wedding dress. So that's how life started. But for that man, Mr. Stern, I was very, very cross. You don't think so? He done the wrong thing. Give a job to pick up the needles or clean the room, you know what I mean? But something you have to pay for somebody. You don't do those kind of things. So I stayed here. And I got married and I came to live to Melbourne. That was another story. I hated Melbourne. I love Sydney. The whole family was there, you know, and you felt more secure.
Which part of your family was in Sydney with you?
Well, one of my sister, and then my second, the doctor came out with, the second sister, my uncle, and 3 cousins. They still live in Sydney. So that's the end of the story. I have to go home because I have to cook the dinner for my grandchildren. I will send them here.
We've almost finished. Why did you come to Melbourne?
I told you I got married. I felt sorry when I arrived to Melbourne. I hated Melbourne too. It was a very cold city. I didn't like Melbourne. Sydney was more cosmopolitan, and I used to go with my sister and my uncle and my auntie wherever they went. And then I had a good job at the Lola Lane factory. You didn't know Lola Lane? They're German Jewish people, Mr. and Mrs. Snow. They were very, very nice to me. I got some photo. They came to the wedding, and they made my wedding dress. And Mrs. Lerner, they were partners, and she used to, Hannah, Deus nicht etwas a husband für mir too? Ze werd ne Mann. So, once you are immigrant, then comes the second time, it was a bit too quickly, I remember I came here to Sydney when I arrived. I couldn't even walk on the street because I felt that still I'm on the boat, Someone was Michigan from Melbourne, he knew me from Sydney, and Cohn was the name. We got married. We go back to Melbourne. I said, listen, why should I get married? Finished?
No, you can continue. Actually, basically there are some questions which you possibly want to ask.
How are the Australian people towards you?
I started to play tennis after my first 6-pound wages. If I bought a tennis racket here, a Josie Marine tennis racket, I used to go playing tennis. I started to pick up, and I found them very nice. Helpful. Anna, you will be all right until I got... and when you are all right, then verginnen is gar nicht.
They're jealous.
Yes.
And the adjustment to learning English, was that
Yes,
difficult?
I tried to go to this Berlitz school at night time, and then slowly I started to read. I was learning in Vienna too, but I think my head was full, with problems, and then you can't concentrate.
And so you came to Melbourne in which year? In 52?
No, in 52 I got married. We shouldn't do it. 1950.
December 50.
December 50, okay.
I should give in a heiße day. Sydney is very humid, very hot. I didn't know that I had got a ski jumper, a sleeveless jumper, a coat. I didn't know. It's very hot.
So how do you attribute your survival? To what do you attribute it?
Say it again.
How do you think you managed to survive your experiences?
God wanted me to live, that's all. There is no other
Explanation.
I'm sorry. How did other people say that? I didn't want to kill myself because I can't kill myself. You know what I mean? Even if you wanted, or you had a knife, but I wanted to see some revenge. You know what I mean? And then I can't hurt any boy.
After all that.
Verbrennen sollen sie alle, but I can't do anything.
And have you talked about your experiences with your children?
Oh yeah. I told them I got the photos. Tommy was with me, as I told you, in Dachau, in Auschwitz. Tommy has got so much photos. He was there everywhere. And they know it. And now I try to tell my grandchildren. You know, and so how far can you go? That's a history that happened. Leider, and there are the Jewish martyrs, and that's not only me, you know, the whole generation, and I don't know how somebody else explains that, you know. Once I've been given a Häftling, now I am a free, I don't know. When I was a Häftling, I tried, Häftling...
Prisoner.
Prisoner, I tried to live according. As a prisoner, now I'm free, I try to live like a normal, the way I was brought up, a human being, that's all.
And do you think your children have been affected by your past?
I think, Tommy, yes. Yes. When Tommy, my son, says, Mom, I can't live with the Goyim, a boy who done beautifully as a lawyer, and another year and a half, and he left everything behind, and he was just interested in the Holocaust. He went by himself from Auschwitz with so many things, so definitely yes. But I didn't tell them until they were 13. They used to ask, what is this number? I told them my home number, phone number from home. After the bar mitzvah, I told them because I didn't want to push more pressure on them. I don't know how other people are managing, I don't know.
Have you got a message you would like to leave to your children and to future generations?
The only thing that I hope that they should never go through the whole generation, what this generation went through, that's all. And to stay an honest Jew, that's all. That's the whole message for my grandchildren, for my children. And we are not powering our, what is beshared is beshared.
Destiny and fate.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't push ourselves to Auschwitz. We didn't want to come to Australia. I didn't even know where is Australia. Don't laugh about it, but that's true. Only I wanted to get away from Europe as far as possible.
Mrs. Danko, thank you for telling us your story.
Sorry. Thanks for the cup of tea.
Thanks.
Okay, so who are these people?
They are my cousin. She died. She lost her young sister in Auschwitz, and that's my brother, and that's me.
Could we have their names, please?
Their name, Susie, Naftule, or Joseph. It's my brother. We used to call him Tuli, and that's me,
Thanks.
Anichka.
What year? What year was it taken?
What year? Wait a minute. 49 something, 48, 49.
Thanks.
Zeem is me nog. That's the block in Erlangen, block 13, where we used to live, in Auschwitz.
And
That's-
when did you take that photo?
48. Sometimes in 48, I don't know the date. If you see the back, is that the back?
Good.
Yes.
No, that's okay.
Doesn't matter. Here I used to sleep. That's the block, my block as well. Ze zijn zeer hoog niet.
This is the back.
There's the koya. Is it the right thing?
Yes, here are the bunks.
Yeah.
Yes, in the middle bunk, or we went underneath where the rats used to
Run
sleep
around.
with us, yes.
Sleep with you.
The man. This is the outside Birkenau. Isn't it? Yes. That's me when we used to be with the transport. I don't know those people who used to be in the transport. That's the only transport from Hungary and from Europe. This is I wanted to say something. This is the person from America, a priest who organized the trip. It is in Auschwitz in front of Mengele's house. And he helped my brother to go to the United States, that priest. Mr. Beer was his name. That's in 48, that's my uncle. That was the only monument, let's say.
Monument, very good.
And there are the candles, what we liked. That was the first one in Auschwitz, in Birkenau. This is Hess, where he hanging in Auschwitz in front of the crematorium. That was the try for. Is that Hess? Yes.
Yes.
Is it?
Rudolf,
Yeah.
Rudolf Hess. Yeah.
Rudolf Hess, yes. He was killed there. That's me again in 48 when I went down to Auschwitz. Those candles are there. They were written in 3 languages. I think Polish, Czech, and I don't know what was the third, French perhaps. How many people have been killed there. Again, this the first, pardon?
Crematorium?
The crematorium. There we used to put some lights because the real what they have. That's in 48 as well. We had dismounted by hand that crematorium in Auschwitz. Vad ska vi work? Here again in front of the crematorium, which is still there. From there I bought the stones. Have you seen it? You know those the crematorium. This is to the crematorium. Yeah. Again the mounted crematorium. That was when we went to the transport in 48. As you can see the happy faces there, can't you? In 48, 1948. That was the first transport going there to Auschwitz. You can see the faces.
Yes.
And there is a box where I put some sand home, and they built a temple, new temple, which was destroyed during the war, and that was underneath. That put that little stone from the crematorium I took in a small box, and that was the foundation for the new shul.
Right.
Even my name is there in Hungary, in Nyíregyháza. This Auschwitz, I think, yes, that's the entry of Auschwitz in 48. It's just the street, I think there is some, the...
SS barracks.
And one of the barracks, SS barrack, that's right, yes. There is one in front of my house there, 1930. 13, that was my block's name. As you can see how big is the grasses, because it was really unintended for 3 years, yes. This is the entry for Birkenau from Auschwitz.
And the big crowd of people?
Yes, it was quite, I don't know, 200 or something like that.
Who came with you?
Yes, I think we went by, I don't know where we started, but with Polish train we went, I don't know. That's the entry for the Birkenau camp. That's the entry to Auschwitz, and they used to leave Mengele on from those flats. And those people come from the transport as well. There's a punishing block in the corner. They used to kill the people, you know, the Polish, whoever wanted to run away or they caught the person, they used to kill them by the cross wall, you know. It's the only crematorium which is still existing in Auschwitz. That was the first one, and it's still existing. On that little train, they used to push in the dead people into the crematorium, into the oven after they were gassed. That's my home sink again, my little block. No windows as you can see it, no doors. And I used to stand here as a torwache, you know, where they caught me.
On a lookout.
When I look out, look to the left, look to the right, until they caught me. En ik heb zoveel zorgen gehad.
You give up your job.
They
You
both-
resigned. Give notice.
I'm not cross-eyed and I had to look on both sides like
Yeah,
this.
and you
But
give
it-
notice.
Yeah, I say that that's enough in this position. You look at those bitter faces. Can you see it?
Yes.
We had a stopover somewhere. I don't remember the place where. That is Birkenau. We went along
Between the wires.
between the wires, yes. You know, that time I couldn't. That's again here, men mag, wieso, wat zoekt men dat? Was de rabbi.
Kaddish.
Kaddish zoekt Kaddish. Meracham or something.
El
like
Rachamim,
that.
that's
Mhm.
Kaddish.
Here is the one what you have seen it before, you remember?
Yeah, a
It
distant
was
shot.
in a different places, yes. That was again among the destroyed
of
crematorium. Just the memories, beds, very sad memories here in Auschwitz, in Birkenau. This part here, it was shown in Budapest in the newsreel. And as you can you see the little box in under my arm? In that one I collect some bones and things like that.
Just here.
Zien moest men ook.
Here you can see.
Yes, here is the little box.
Right.
And when I took home some from the grave, some bones, some pieces from human being, and they started to build in Hungary a new shul.
And you said this is in a movie.
Hmm?
Did you say this is in a
That,
film?
yes, they showed that in the movie, in the newsreel. Oh yes, that was it was in 48, that was something new in, after the war, you know, that I went out and I bought something from Auschwitz.
Remnants like bones and soil.
Mm. That's again on front, that was the first
Memorial. pizza.
memorial table, yes, the first one.
Yes, may as well show it bigger.
Yeah, that-
Look at the face shows, you know, all the tzores on my face.
Yes.
Can you see it? And how
We
they I
can.
used to sit there until I decided what shall I do with my life. To kill or to be happy or what shall I do? To
Yeah.
robber, you know, until I decided I will go the way where my parents wanted me to put me. And then I decided, you know, that there's the crematorium in Auschwitz which is still existing. There. Where is my pencil? Yeah, those.
Yes.
It's still existing. That's the only one which hasn't been dismantled
Thanks.
in Auschwitz. This is the same. This is from the entry, I believe. Yes. A little part from the sideway. People are praying there. And behind this, the photo is of Hess. You remember?
Yes. Yes, the one you saw.
Gezien is mijn pencil.
No, it's okay.
Zei je nog gezien
No,
is?
that's all right. That's
Well,
crematorium.
there is the crematorium again, which in Auschwitz, from where can you see it now? It is still there in the same, you had to do it by hand. And they took I think they took the bricks, which is left over to Germany.
Even to hide the bricks.
Yeah. This is in Birkenau as well. Behind, as you can see it here, wait a minute, Arsenisch. It is written there, verboten something. Can you see it there? Something is written there, verboten. This is in front of the crematorium in Auschwitz.
Crematorium 2.
The crematorium too,
That's
yes.
what it is.
Yes, from
Yes.
there I bought a little piece from the burned crematorium. Don't look at this face. This is number Seelager, 13. That was done in, I think in 62. Yes, this photo has been done in 62. It is. This is on front of that photo shows where Mengele used to do the selection, as you can see it through the window. Can you see it, a big
Right,
photo
yes,
there?
Yes, yes.
So, and if you go straight, you are going into the crematorium or to the end of the road there in Birkenau. I think we are here again. We are here again where Mengeles and the SS used to live, I believe, in Birkenau. It is written there again. What is written there? Something. I can't see it. What?
It's very difficult to read.
I can't see it there. Yes, there the SS used to live there.
Yes, it's very close to the gate or something like that.
The SS people used to live in the
Exactly.
gate. Yes. Here is where they hang somebody. I don't know who it was. Can you see it there?
You can't read it. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
It is in front of the crematorium in Auschwitz. This is a number
Block
13 in block 13 in the Sea Lager with my sister. They were from wood. Ours were from stone or from what? The A Lager was built differently than this one. This is the Sea Lager. Yes, you can see here. Can you see those red? Where shall I? It looks like tombstone. Can you see those things?
Yeah. It's big flags.
Big
Is it-
flags
yeah,
in
different
all
name, different
from
languages.
Europe. Every German, French, Hungarian, Czech, everything on the floor. That's the latest, the newest memorial
Yes.
plaques over there. And behind used to be the crematorium, and Polish people used to live there. And they say that we didn't know from anything.
Right.
You know? There were flats, there were weddings, there were whatever you want. What is this one? I think it is just the gate. May I just have a look?
No, it's all right.
This is, you can see it from here, I think. This is the entry from Birkenau into the end to the barracks, to the wall. Can you see it? Yes. Entry from the barracks, yes. This is the entry, as you can see the line, the tram lines as you go in from Auschwitz. Can you see them?
Yes. Really.
And there are the towers. This is again just now, this from Sea Lager, the whole Sea Lager, and the soldiers were watching from there. I don't know how big was
Watchtower.
Watchtower, yes.
There's a jump.
That's my two children, my husband Ronnie, Tommy, and my husband and me. I think one of the birthday party. I don't think Tommy was 4 or 5 years old. And that's Tommy's bar mitzvah. My husband, Yanni, me, and that's Tommy's bar mitzvah. Here again, when Tommy was called up to the shul, his bar mitzvah, he's 13 years old. And that's my son again, Ronnie, at the bar mitzvah with the talis. He was, before he was called up. What has he got on his nose? I didn't hit him. Dirty?
Try again.
It came up, isn't it? Yes, something.
That's on the glass on the
yeah.
top. I'm bringing cloth there.
Maybe it's on the...
That's
on
okay.
It's on the
Plastic,
plastic.
yeah.
Mhm.
Another jump.
Yes, that's my grandchildren.
Oh.
Claire and Mark. Mark is called after my brother. Mark. It's called Eliezer. That's that. They're going to the Yavne College. That my daughter-in-law, Claire, Mark, and my brother who lives in America, Tuli. That's my children again. It was last year, 94. My brother and my sister-in-law who lives in America, Cleveland, they came for a visit. And Mark is quite a big boy, isn't he? That's Claire when she was young, and that's me. I don't know, she must have been 1.5, 2 years old. Again, my two grandchildren, that's me, my brother from the state, and my son Ronnie. You see what a face I have got? For that you can give me 20 years in the jail.
Now I see differently.
What was that last year in March, and this year in March, one of my sisters in Sydney, RG, who died, and my brother came specially for the tombstone, how you call
Consecration.
it? Consecration, yes. Her name was Elizabeth Laszlo. Yep. And after that week, later on, there was a bar mitzvah for my son, from my sister, and there's my sister's family and my brother and sister and brother-in-law. So I am not on that photo. You know why?
You were taking it.
I didn't want to take it. No, I didn't want to spoil the photo. That was in Sydney in March.
We've had it already. Maybe we should end off on that one.
What is it, darling?
And this is again the future generation.
The future generation, yes, that's my daughter-in-law, Claire and Margaret. And I hope that they will realize what the grandparents went through, and they will stick to their background and be honest.
That's your granddaughter.
Exactly, I
Same.
hope so. They're going to the Yavne College, and you give them whatever you can, and the rest of them you can't do anything, can you?
No.
That's that.